Roman Reigns was crying. The tribal chief, the man who has dominated WWE for over 4 years, the acknowledge me superstar who built an empire on his shoulders, was standing backstage with tears streaming down his face, his voice cracking as he made a promise that sent chills down the spine of everyone within earshot. And if you think you know why, if you think this is just another wrestling storyline, you are dead wrong. What happened to Cody Rhodes after Saturday night's main event wasn't just an attack. It was an attempted murder that has left the American Nightmare hospitalized with a potentially career-ending neck injury, and Roman Reigns is ready to burn down the entire WWE roster to get his revenge. I'm talking about a backstage assault so vicious, so calculated, and so brutal that it has shaken WWE to its very core. Cody Rhodes, the man who dethroned Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, the people's champion who represents everything good about professional wrestling, was found unconscious in a pool of his own blood with his neck twisted at an angle that made grown men vomit. And when Roman Reigns saw the footage, when he witnessed what those cowards did to a man he respects more than anyone else in this business, something inside the head of the table snapped. This isn't about championships. This isn't about storylines. This isn't about entertainment. This is about real violence, real consequences, and real emotions that have crossed every line that exists between performance and reality. Roman Reigns has declared war, and he doesn't care who gets caught in the crossfire. He's coming for blood, and after what you're about to hear, you'll understand why every single person on the WWE roster should be absolutely terrified of what happens next. Let me paint you the picture of what happened Saturday night, because the mainstream wrestling media is refusing to show you the real footage. They're sanitizing the story to protect WWE's corporate image, but WrestlingNewsCC doesn't bow down to corporate pressure. We tell you the truth, no matter how ugly it gets. Saturday night's main event was supposed to be a celebration. SmackDown had delivered an incredible show, the crowd was electric, and Cody Rhodes had just delivered a promo that reminded everyone why he's the heart and soul of this company. But as Rhodes was walking through the backstage area, heading toward his rental car in the parking garage, 3 masked figures emerged from the shadows like predators stalking their prey. Security cameras captured the entire assault, and I've seen the footage. What I witnessed was 18 minutes of pure, unadulterated brutality that would make hardened criminals sick to their stomachs. These weren't wrestling moves. These weren't worked punches. This was 3 grown men attempting to end Cody Rhodes' career and possibly his life with weapons that had no business being anywhere near a wrestling venue. The first attacker came from behind with what appeared to be a steel pipe, striking Rhodes across the back of his skull with such force that the sound echoed through the concrete parking garage like a gunshot. Rhodes collapsed immediately, blood already streaming from a gash that would later require 37 stitches to close. But they weren't finished. They were just getting started. As Rhodes lay helpless on the ground, barely conscious and unable to defend himself, the second attacker began stomping on his ribs with steel-toed boots, each impact producing a sickening crack that could be heard on the security footage. Medical reports later revealed that Cody suffered 4 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and internal bleeding that required emergency surgery to repair. But the worst was yet to come. The third attacker pulled out a steel chair and began systematically targeting Rhodes' neck and spine, delivering blow after blow with methodical precision that suggested this wasn't a random attack of passion, this was a calculated attempt to paralyze or kill Cody Rhodes. The final chair shot landed with such devastating impact that Rhodes' body went completely limp, his arms and legs twitching in a way that made it clear something had gone horribly wrong with his nervous system. When Roman Reigns arrived at the hospital 2 hours later, still in his wrestling gear from his own match that night, what he found broke something inside him that may never be repaired. Cody Rhodes, the man who had earned his respect through years of incredible matches and genuine friendship, was lying in an intensive care unit with his neck in a stabilization brace, machines monitoring every breath, every heartbeat, every brain function. The doctors pulled Roman aside and delivered news that no one should ever have to hear about someone they care about. Cody's neck had suffered severe trauma. 3 vertebrae were fractured, his spinal cord was swollen, and there was a very real possibility that he might never walk again, let alone wrestle. The man who had overcome every obstacle in his path, who had fought his way back from being fired from WWE to becoming the face of the company, was now fighting for his basic motor functions. Roman Reigns stood in that hospital hallway, looking through the window at his friend hooked up to machines, and something inside the tribal chief shattered. Witnesses described seeing the most dominant force in WWE history break down completely, his massive frame shaking with sobs as the reality of what had happened hit him like a freight train. But it wasn't just sadness that consumed Roman in that moment. It was rage. Pure, unfiltered, volcanic rage that started building in his chest and spread through his entire body like molten lava. Someone had tried to destroy the best man he knew, and Roman Reigns was going to make them pay a price that would serve as a warning to anyone who even thought about crossing that line again. The nurse working that night later described what she witnessed as the most intense display of emotion she had ever seen from another human being. Roman wasn't just crying. He was grieving the potential loss of everything Cody represented, everything they had built together, everything that made professional wrestling worth fighting for. When Roman finally composed himself enough to speak, when he wiped the tears from his eyes and looked directly into the security camera that was recording everything, what he said next sent shockwaves throughout the entire wrestling industry. His voice was barely above a whisper, but every word carried the weight of absolute certainty and deadly intent. "I don't care who you are. I don't care why you did this. I don't care if you're on the roster, if you're management, if you're family, if you're friends, if you had anything to do with what happened to Cody Rhodes. I am going to find you, and I am going to destroy you so completely that your own mother won't recognize what's left." But Roman wasn't finished. He stepped closer to the camera, his eyes red from crying but burning with a fury that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than human emotion should be able to reach. "You think you know Roman Reigns. You think you've seen the tribal chief at his most dangerous. You have no idea what I'm capable of when someone hurts my family. Cody Rhodes is my brother, and you tried to take him away from his wife, his children, his mother, and everyone who loves him. That makes this personal. That makes this about survival. And I promise you, your survival, not mine." The way Roman delivered those words, the complete absence of his usual confident bravado, replaced instead by cold, calculated menace, made it clear that this wasn't a wrestling promo. This wasn't entertainment. This was a man making a blood oath that he intended to keep, regardless of the consequences to his career, his reputation, or his freedom. Within hours of Roman's promise, WWE officials launched the most comprehensive internal investigation in company history. Security footage from every camera in the arena was being analyzed frame by frame. Every employee, every wrestler, every member of the production crew was being questioned with the intensity of a federal investigation. But here's what WWE doesn't want you to know. Roman Reigns isn't waiting for their corporate investigation to reach its polite, sanitized conclusion. He's conducting his own investigation, and his methods make police interrogations look like friendly conversations. Word is spreading through the locker room that Roman is personally questioning everyone who was backstage that night, and his questioning techniques are becoming increasingly aggressive. Multiple sources have confirmed that Roman confronted Solo Sikoa in a backstage area Monday night, grabbing his cousin by the throat and demanding to know if he had any involvement in the attack. When Solo denied any knowledge, Roman allegedly slammed him against a concrete wall and told him that if he was lying, family blood wouldn't protect him from what was coming. The encounter with JC Mateo was even more intense. Roman cornered the young wrestler in the parking lot after SmackDown, and witnesses described seeing Mateo's face go completely white as Roman questioned him for over 20 minutes. Whatever Roman said during that conversation left Mateo so shaken that he requested additional security for his hotel room and refused to return to the venue until Roman had left the building. But Roman's investigation isn't limited to wrestlers. He's been questioning security personnel, camera operators, catering staff, and anyone else who might have seen something or heard something that could lead him to the perpetrators. And his message to everyone is crystal clear: if you know something and you're not talking, you're protecting the people who tried to murder his friend, and that makes you complicit in their crime. The psychological impact of Roman's investigation and his promise of retaliation has created an atmosphere of paranoia and fear throughout WWE that's unlike anything the company has experienced in decades. Wrestlers who have never had any conflict with Roman or Cody are requesting additional security. Some are changing their travel plans, staying in different hotels, avoiding certain areas of the arena. LA Knight, who has always been outspoken about everything, was asked about the situation during a recent interview and his response was telling: "I've never seen Roman like this. I've never seen anyone like this. He's not the tribal chief right now, he's something much more dangerous. And honestly, if someone did that to one of my friends, I'd probably be the same way. Even wrestlers who have had issues with Roman in the past are expressing support for his quest for justice. CM Punk, who has never been shy about criticizing WWE management or fellow wrestlers, posted on social media, "What happened to Cody Rhodes crosses every line that exists in this business. Roman Reigns has every right to be angry, and whoever did this deserves whatever's coming to them." But it's not just fear that's spreading through the locker room, it's also a growing sense of unity around Roman's mission. Many wrestlers are offering to help with his investigation, to provide information, to serve as backup if needed. The attack on Cody Rhodes has galvanized the entire roster in a way that transcends traditional rivalries and storylines. Seth Rollins, who has been one of Roman's most consistent opponents over the years, was spotted having an intense conversation with Roman backstage at Monday Night Raw. Witnesses described it as a meeting between two generals planning a military campaign, with both men setting aside their personal differences to focus on finding and punishing the people responsible for what happened to their mutual friend. What makes this investigation even more complex and disturbing is the level of sophistication displayed by the attackers. This wasn't a random assault or a crime of passion, this was a carefully planned operation carried out by people who clearly had inside knowledge of WWE's security procedures and Cody Rhodes' typical backstage routine. The masks worn by the attackers were professional grade, the type used by special operations forces to prevent identification even under high-definition surveillance. The weapons used were specifically chosen to cause maximum damage while leaving minimal forensic evidence. The timing of the attack was calculated to occur during a brief window when security cameras would have limited visibility due to a routine maintenance procedure. Most disturbing of all, the attackers knew exactly where to find Cody Rhodes during a time when he should have been surrounded by security and other wrestlers. This suggests that at least one of the perpetrators had detailed knowledge of WWE's backstage operations, access to internal schedules, and familiarity with the arena's layout and security protocols. Roman Reigns has seized on these details as proof that the attack came from within WWE itself. During his investigation, he's been focusing primarily on people who would have had access to this type of inside information, and his list of suspects is apparently much shorter than anyone expected. According to sources close to the investigation, Roman has narrowed his focus to fewer than 10 potential suspects, all of whom are people with significant access to WWE operations and detailed knowledge of backstage procedures. This has created an atmosphere where longtime WWE employees are looking at each other with suspicion, wondering who among them might be capable of such brutality. While Roman Reigns conducts his investigation and plans his retaliation, Cody Rhodes remains in intensive care, fighting battles that have nothing to do with wrestling and everything to do with basic survival. The latest medical reports paint a picture that's both hopeful and terrifying, depending on how you choose to interpret the limited information being released by his medical team. The good news is that Cody is conscious and responsive, able to communicate with his wife Brandi and his medical team. The swelling in his spinal cord has begun to reduce, and early neurological tests suggest that he has retained feeling and limited movement in his extremities. These are positive signs that indicate the damage to his nervous system may not be as severe as initially feared. But the challenging reality is that Cody's recovery is going to be measured in months and years, not weeks. Even in the best-case scenario, he's looking at extensive physical therapy, multiple surgical procedures, and a rehabilitation process that will test every ounce of determination and willpower he possesses. The psychological impact of the attack is also becoming increasingly apparent. Cody Rhodes, who has always been known for his positive attitude and unwavering optimism, is struggling with depression and anxiety related to both his physical condition and the realization that someone wanted to hurt him badly enough to plan and execute such a vicious assault. Roman Reigns visits the hospital every day, spending hours talking to Cody about everything except wrestling, trying to provide emotional support while simultaneously gathering information that might help identify the attackers. These visits have become the focal point of Roman's daily routine, the driving force behind his determination to find and punish the people responsible. WWE's corporate response to the attack has been a masterclass in damage control and public relations management, but it's also created additional friction with Roman Reigns, who views their measured approach as inadequate given the severity of what happened to his friend. The company has issued carefully worded statements expressing concern for Cody Rhodes' recovery while emphasizing their cooperation with law enforcement and their commitment to maintaining a safe working environment. They've increased security at all venues, implemented new backstage access protocols, and hired additional investigators to work alongside their internal security team. But Roman Reigns isn't satisfied with corporate statements and policy changes. He wants names, he wants justice, and he wants it delivered with the kind of swift, decisive action that only he seems capable of providing. This has created tension between Roman and WWE management that's unlike anything the company has dealt with during his tenure as their top star. Triple H, in his role as head of creative, has tried to balance Roman's emotional needs with the company's legal and public relations concerns. Multiple sources have described heated conversations between Triple H and Roman, with Roman demanding more aggressive action and Triple H trying to explain the constraints imposed by legal procedures and corporate protocols. The situation became even more complicated when Roman reportedly told Triple H that if WWE wasn't going to take appropriate action, he would handle the situation himself, regardless of the consequences to his WWE contract or his relationship with the company. This forced WWE management to make a choice between supporting their biggest star's quest for justice and maintaining their corporate image as a responsible entertainment company. As days have turned into weeks since the attack, Roman Reigns' investigation has evolved from emotional reaction into systematic pursuit. He's hired private investigators, forensic experts, and security consultants to supplement his own efforts. The resources he's dedicating to finding the attackers suggest this has become the most important mission of his life. The private investigators Roman hired aren't typical corporate security consultants, they're former federal agents with experience in violent crime investigation, people who understand how to track criminals who don't want to be found. Their involvement has elevated the investigation from internal WWE matter to something approaching a federal case in terms of sophistication and resources. These investigators have been conducting interviews that go far beyond what WWE's internal security team was capable of handling. They're analyzing financial records, examining communication logs, reviewing travel patterns, and building detailed profiles of everyone who had access to the information needed to plan and execute the attack. The forensic experts Roman hired have re-examined all the physical evidence from the crime scene, using techniques and equipment that weren't available during the initial investigation. Their analysis has reportedly uncovered additional clues that weren't detected by WWE's security team, including trace evidence that might help identify the weapons used and potentially the people who used them. Most significantly, Roman's team has been conducting psychological evaluations of potential suspects, building profiles based on behavioral analysis and criminal psychology. This approach has helped narrow the suspect list even further, focusing attention on individuals who possess both the capability and the psychological makeup necessary to plan and execute such a brutal assault. The emotional impact of this situation on Roman Reigns extends far beyond anger and desire for revenge. Those closest to him describe a man who has been fundamentally changed by witnessing what happened to someone he cares about, someone who represents everything he believes professional wrestling should be. Roman's wife has been dealing with her own fears about her husband's safety, knowing that his investigation and his public promises of retaliation have made him a potential target for whoever attacked Cody Rhodes. She's reportedly begged Roman to step back, to let law enforcement handle the situation, but Roman has made it clear that backing down isn't an option. The psychological pressure of maintaining his WWE schedule while conducting his investigation has also taken its toll. Roman's performance in the ring remains at his typically high standard, but those working closely with him describe someone who is operating on pure adrenaline and determination, pushing his body and mind to limits that aren't sustainable over the long term. Sleep has become a rare commodity for Roman, who spends most nights reviewing investigation files, planning next steps, and visiting Cody in the hospital. His eating habits have changed dramatically, with Roman losing noticeable weight as his focus on the investigation has consumed almost every aspect of his daily routine. But perhaps most significantly, the attack on Cody Rhodes has forced Roman to confront the reality that the wrestling business he loves, the business that has given him everything, also contains people capable of attempting murder. This realization has shaken his faith in the industry and the people around him in ways that may never fully heal. While Roman Reigns and his team of investigators have been careful not to publicly name specific suspects, information has begun leaking about who they're focusing their attention on, and the names being whispered in wrestling circles are shocking in their implications. The investigation has apparently centered on individuals who would have had both the motive and the opportunity to orchestrate such an attack. This includes wrestlers who may have felt that Cody Rhodes' championship reign was preventing them from reaching the top of the company, as well as people with personal grudges against either Cody or Roman. More disturbing are the suggestions that the attack might have been motivated by business considerations rather than personal animosity. Some theories being explored suggest that the attackers might have been acting on behalf of people who stood to benefit financially from Cody Rhodes being removed from his position as WWE's top champion. The investigation has also examined the possibility that the attack was designed to send a message to other wrestlers about the consequences of challenging certain power structures within WWE. This theory suggests that Cody Rhodes wasn't chosen randomly, but specifically because of what he represents, the idea that talent and determination can overcome political obstacles and corporate preferences. Perhaps most chilling is the theory that Roman Reigns himself might have been the intended target, with the attackers choosing Cody Rhodes either as a substitute or as a way to inflict maximum psychological damage on Roman. This possibility has forced Roman to consider that his investigation might be putting not just himself but everyone he cares about at additional risk. The investigation reached a critical turning point when Roman's private investigators uncovered evidence that potentially links one of the suspected attackers to a specific WWE employee with access to all the inside information that would have been necessary to plan and execute the assault. The evidence reportedly includes communication records, financial transactions, and circumstantial evidence that creates a compelling case against at least one individual. While the details haven't been made public, sources close to the investigation describe the evidence as substantial enough to warrant immediate action. This discovery has pushed Roman Reigns to what those around him describe as a breaking point. The man who has always prided himself on his professionalism and his ability to separate business from personal matters is now faced with evidence that someone within the WWE family was involved in trying to end Cody Rhodes' career and possibly his life. Roman's reaction to this evidence has been described as both terrifying and heartbreaking. The realization that someone he may have worked with, someone he may have trusted, was involved in the attack has shattered his faith in the wrestling business and the people who populate it. The weight of this discovery has also forced Roman to confront the possibility that his promise of retaliation might need to be fulfilled sooner rather than later. The evidence in his possession could be enough to identify and locate the people responsible, which means the moment he's been building toward, the moment when he delivers on his promise of swift and decisive justice, may be approaching rapidly. As this investigation moves toward its conclusion, the wrestling world holds its breath, waiting to see how Roman Reigns will fulfill the promise he made with tears in his eyes and rage in his heart. The evidence he's gathered, the resources he's deployed, and the determination he's demonstrated suggest that the people responsible for attacking Cody Rhodes are about to face consequences that will serve as a warning to anyone who might consider crossing similar lines in the future. Roman's promise of swift retaliation wasn't just an emotional outburst, it was a commitment that he's prepared to fulfill regardless of the personal cost. The man who built his career on dominance and control is about to demonstrate what happens when someone threatens the people and principles he holds most dear. The wrestling industry has never seen anything like what's about to unfold. This isn't a storyline or an entertainment angle, this is real justice being pursued by someone with the resources, determination, and capability to deliver it. And when Roman Reigns finally confronts the people responsible for what happened to Cody Rhodes, the confrontation is going to reshape not just their lives, but the entire landscape of professional wrestling. The tears Roman shed in that hospital hallway were just the beginning. The real story, the story of what happens when the most dominant force in WWE decides that some lines should never be crossed, is about to begin. And based on everything we've learned about Roman's investigation, his evidence, and his unwavering commitment to justice, that story is going to be unlike anything the wrestling world has ever witnessed. What happens next will determine not just the fate of the people who attacked Cody Rhodes, but the future of WWE itself. Because Roman Reigns has made it clear that he's willing to burn down everything he's built if that's what it takes to get justice for his friend. And given everything he's capable of, everything he's willing to sacrifice, and everything he's already set in motion, there's no reason to doubt that he'll keep every word of the promise he made through his tears. The tribal chief is about to show the wrestling world what happens when you mess with his family. And God help anyone who gets in his way. If you thought tonight's story was wild, trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. So don't stop now. Click on the video right here on your screen to continue the chaos, the drama, and the inside scoop only we deliver. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and join the Wrestling News CC family, where the real stories of WWE come to life. See you in the next one.